Welcome back. The City of Angels was taken over yesterday by some lunatics who decided that the infamous rush hour traffic wasn't bad enough. So they decided to shut down all southbound lanes of the 110 freeway shortly before 9 a.m. Pacific time. The protest was organized by the progressive Jewish organization, If Not Now, which had been timed for Hanukkah. Gee, what a way to celebrate Judaism, by terrorizing citizens trying to live their lives, get to work, doctor appointments, funerals, etc. They could be heard singing the phrase "ceasefire now" while appearing to link arms and blocking the highway. The organization, in a statement, said, "We cannot allow businesses as usual to continue as Palestinians are murdered with impunity." How absolutely selfish and deeply narcissistic to intentionally inflict pain on innocent people for their political agenda. How is this not an act of domestic terrorism? How many people will not be able to feed their children today because they missed work? How many people missed a chemotherapy session or the chance to say goodbye to a dying loved one? They didn't care. They defied the cops who told them their protest was illegal, but did little else. As brawls broke out with stranded, frustrated drivers trying to take matters in their own hands, one shouted, "You're just hurting working people." Exactly. Did any one of these idiots think that shutting down Los Angeles would reach Netanyahu and he would say, "Okay, ceasefire it is"? One truck driver decided that they had enough and proceeded through the crowd. I have to warn you, this is graphic. Now, while I don't condone that action by the truck driver, I can understand how someone could be desperate enough to get out of that situation. After all, this went on for an hour and a half. And it's ultimately the protesters who are responsible for what happened yesterday. These types of protests are happening all across America, and it seems the rights are only on the side of the violent agitators. Where are the legal protections for the rest of us who get caught up in and victimized by them? Criminal defense attorney and former Morris County prosecutor Bob Bianchi joins me now to react to this. Bob, thanks for being with us. It's great to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Bob, I know that pedestrians have the right of way, but does that extend to squatting on freeways intending to block traffic?
This reminds me of a significant issue that I was dealing with when I was the county prosecutor, because we were in charge of all of law enforcement in the county that I was prosecutor in. And look, it's from a law enforcement perspective, we try to respect people's rights to remain silent and to gather and to protest, but it has to be done in a safe fashion that does not affect the rest of the public. And I get, and in fact, I just gave a lecture to the Bar Association about where do your First Amendment and right to assembly begin, and when does it turn over to become criminal? And it could be a fine line, but it's not when it's affecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So while I applaud anyone who has a position with respect to this on one side or the other to forcefully advocate, you don't have the right to affect the public in this fashion. And we're living in a day and age, and I see this every day in my practice, my criminal law practice, where people seem to think they have the ability to say what they want, do what they want, when they want, because of the quote unquote First Amendment. And that is just a completely inaccurate understanding of the First Amendment, as well as the case law from the United States Supreme Court all the way down to today that's interpreted this for many years. So in this particular situation, I was thinking about if I were the county prosecutor again and I were evaluating it, I clearly would be very aggressive with regard to ensuring that those protesters were removed from that location because they were not in an appropriate place. And in fact, it's a danger to themselves. You know why it's a danger to themselves, Alison? Because of what you saw happen. Because somebody may get frustrated, angry, pull a bat out, pull a gun out, or drive a car into a crowd of people, and then they get injured. Now, that individual had taken it to a level that would be inappropriate as well. So this would have been a situation, if I were handling it, where protesters would have been arrested, and certainly anyone who harmed the protesters with physical violence would have gone over the line as well. So there you go.
Yeah, it certainly is an interesting situation. I obviously know we have the right to protest, but to do it peacefully, I don't think this is quite exactly my idea of peaceful. But Bob, 75 people were arrested. Do you know what some of the charges might be here in this case?
Well, they're going to be charged with probably pretty much minor offenses, it would seem to me. Usually the state laws are pretty consistent. There's some differences here and there. I mean, this is not something where prosecutors are going to be looking for convictions. I mean, we understand that sometimes people can be overwhelmed and are otherwise law-abiding citizens with no prior criminal history. And we also don't want to stigmatize people with a criminal conviction merely because they made a bad decision. And I think that that is how prosecutors are going to look at it. I think the main objective here from a law enforcement point of view was to eliminate the danger to the public, as well as give free access to those highways what the people needed. So there'll be minor offenses, misdemeanors, disorderly persons, kinds of offenses. They're not going to be, in my mind, at least from what I saw on this, just merely because they went out and wrongfully and unlawfully protested. As in the end of the day, you're dealing with a human being at the other end who's passionate about a position and made a mistake about the manner in which they went about it. So you always, as a prosecutor, have to use the rule of reason when you're dealing with human beings.
Yeah. Very important to remember. Bob, let's switch over now to the case of the customer who choked on a chicken bone. The Ohio Supreme Court is hearing the case of a man who suffered serious medical injuries after eating an order of boneless wings, or so they were called. Seems they weren't so boneless, and a piece of chicken bone got stuck in his esophagus. What's interesting to me is that I would have expected it to be open and shut sort of case. He ordered boneless and got bones, but it made it to the state Supreme Court because the lower courts defended the restaurant. Why do you think that is, Bob?
Alison, I love this case because I actually went to my jury to actually ask the question. I very rarely go to somebody. My jury's my wife, Michelle. And I'm like, I'm reading articles about this, and I'm like, I can't believe this wound its way up to the Supreme Court of the state. And there's a substantial group of people that disagree with my position. So I'll start with that. And my position is thus. I mean, we all know when you say boneless, you go in there, you never know what you're eating to begin with, but it's mushy and it's, it's not going to be anything with fiber in it. You don't expect to have a bone in it. And this argument that, well, chickens have bones, I mean, to me, is ludicrous. It's not, you just don't expect it. The guy was eating there. Look, I mean, this is actually, we're laughing about it. This guy really got messed up. I mean, he tore his trachea and it caused some sepsis-like condition. He had to be put in a medically induced coma on 2 occasions and has permanent, breathing difficulties and lifelong injuries because of this. I just, for the life of me, can't believe that in Ohio, they cannot figure out that a bone shouldn't be in boneless chicken fingers. And if you eat something and it causes injury, that as a company, you're going to be liable for that. I mean, where has the world gone to? The insanity that you can't even be peaceful eating your boneless piece of chicken.
It is just outrageous. This is not the America I signed up to live in. Bob, now the Ohio Supreme Court is arguing over the definition of a chicken tender versus chicken strip and boned or non-boned. I mean, the insanity just continues. The lower court stated that chicken implies possible bones and it's chewer beware. Is that a legal standard in general?
I'm sorry. That's the first time hearing it. I didn't. Chewer beware. Listen, we have all sorts of product liability cases in this country that basically say that you have to, again, use the rule of reason as to what a customer expects. And if you have a defect in your product, we have very strict products liability and consumer protection laws for a reason, so that the customer is protected from stupidity like this. And it is on the company to ensure that it does not put something into its product. And chewer beware is just really the stupidest concept I could possibly think of. That's like saying, oh, there's a razor blade in there. Chewer beware. You should know that things fall into the chicken mix. I mean, it's nuts.
It really is nuts, and such a silly argument that I guess, it's important we talk about these things because better beware about choking on some bones if you order some chicken wings that aren't supposed to have bones. I don't know. Bob, we're out of time for today, but thank you so much for joining us and weighing in. It's always a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.